slowly more and more people started coming outside. Like you start when there's something going on outside, people start noticing. People start realizing what's going on, and by this point in time, there was probably like 60. It happened really fast. There's like 60, 70 Mexicans now, and there's probably 20 blacks by now. They lined up against us. We lined up. The cops got in between us. They had their mace. They started spraying their mace, and then eventually a fist got swung. Somebody got hit. And a little bit of fighting and skirmishing started happening, then we got separated again. And it was kind of like this buildup of tension that lasted like probably 10, 15 minutes. But by the end of the 15 minutes, the white boys were involved, and everybody was involved, like all the way down, like literally everybody. And this is a big yard. There's about 1,100 inmates on this yard. And the blacks, we only made up like maybe 180 of them. And out of those 180, there was probably about 100 of us who were young and could, fight.
What's up, everybody? Big Herc 916, getting down fresh out prison talk, and I'm here with the homie Mike from Arizona, and we kicking around some stories, man, and I wanted him to share some things he experienced in the Arizona prison system. And Mike, one of the questions I wanted to ask you is, what's one of the most memorable experiences that you wouldn't want to wish on anyone that you went through while in prison?
Okay. On March 4th in 2013, it was a Sunday morning. It was Sunday or Saturday because it was a visitation day. There were people at visitation day. And I remember because they served different breakfasts on the weekends. On the weekends, you only get 2 meals. On the weekdays, you get 3 meals. It's small things like that you remember. But me and my buddy, I have a friend, I think it was like 9 in the morning, 8:30 in the morning. Me and him were getting ready to walk to the chow hall, go grab some breakfast. And my neighbor, this isn't a dormitory, this is on a minimum yard, so this was a dormitory. My neighbor was an older black dude, friend of mine as well. He came up to me, because me and the other guy were both black, so he came up and said, "Hey, get your shoes on, like it's time to go." And we didn't really know what was going on. So we jumped up, we got our shoes on, we walked outside. It's still pretty early in the morning because there wasn't too many people on the yard yet. A lot of people were still, on the weekends, people would sleep in on it. It's a minimum yard, people would sleep in. And we got outside, and I think the first thing I saw was, it was a Mexican dude that I knew and a black dude that I knew, and the Mexican dude and the black dude were arguing, but there was others out there. There was probably about 15, 20 Mexicans out there and about like 5 or 6 brothers. And so I was one of the first people actually out there to see it, like from our end. And there was like a little argument going on. Something had happened. And I ended up later on finding out what had happened. But words were exchanged, and the Mexican dude ran up on the black dude, and the black dude knocked him out. They were both little guys too. Like they're like, when I say little, like 5'2", 5'3", like little swole guys, both of them. The Mexican dude was a little guy, and the brother was a little guy too. And the brother knocked him out, just slept him. Like this dude was asleep. And slowly, more and more people started coming outside. Like you start when there's something going on outside, people start noticing. People start realizing what's going on, and by this point in time, there was probably like 60. It happened really fast. There's like 60, 70 Mexicans now, and there's probably 20 blacks by now, and we're kind of in lines. We're in the middle of a basketball court. We were in lines. The Mexicans were on a line, and we were kind of in a line, like almost like on a battlefield, you would see, except their line was a lot bigger than ours. And we were still separated. The guards had come in. A couple guards had gotten in between. Like we're trying to stop what was about to happen. And this had actually happened a couple times before, like lead-ups to what we thought might be like a race fight, like a riot, which I had never seen in prison. They don't happen very often in prison. I think back in the day they probably used to happen a lot, but they don't happen very often. And but we had like some lead-ups, like a month before, like a little event had happened between the brothers and Mexicans, and then a month before that, something else had happened where there's a lot of tension on the yard.
Building
up, and you can feel it when you do any amount of time. You could walk outside of the morning, you could feel it in the air. It's like when drugs hit the yard. It's one of those feelings. I could tell. I knew every time large amounts of heroin hit the yard, you could just see it in people's faces. Like it's that tension you can't explain, but. There's words going back and forth, people exchanging words back and forth. This is all happening pretty quick. I had a very close friend of mine who to this day is still like, he's like a brother of mine. He lived in the furthest building from where we were, so I ran and got him and brought him back because I didn't want. I knew we kind of knew what was happening. I didn't want to get trapped on like the back end of the thing, and a lot of people did. This was a really, man. Yeah, this was. I haven't thought about this in years. So in Arizona, for the most part, all the races are allied except for the blacks. So in Arizona, it's blacks versus everybody. That's just the way it is. And the Mexicans and us had an issue, and I'll kind of explain what that was a little bit later on. They lined up against us. We lined up. The cops got in between, us. They had their mace. They started spraying their mace, and then eventually, a fist got swung. Somebody got hit, and a little bit of fighting and skirmishing started happening. And then we got separated again, and then our lines would kind of pull back a little bit, and it was kind of like this buildup of tension that lasted like probably 10, 15 minutes. But by the end of the 15 minutes, the white boys were involved, and everybody was involved, like all the way down, like literally everybody. And this is a big yard. There's about 1,100 inmates on this yard, and the blacks, we only made up like maybe 180 of them. And out of those 180, this is a medical yard too. So meaning that there's people here who are sometimes in wheelchairs. There's older people here. Out of the 180 of us, there was probably about 100 of us who were young and could, fight. These different races started getting in there, and essentially it was just these two lines. Like, I mean, it was like a movie where you see, like, back in the day, like a battlefield, like where there's like, the English and the French.
Yeah, like you're pulling like the Vikings, you're pulling up, and then like yeah.
Yeah, and there's that tension because I don't think either side really wants to fully set it off because this is like a big deal. And this is the first time, and I spent a long time in prison. This happened in 2013, so I'd been in prison already for probably 4 or 5 years by now. This was the first time I really saw racism in prison. Because these were white guys, these were Mexican guys that we hung out with, and the regular guys we played poker with, and now they were out there on the other side of this line yelling, "Nigger, fuck you, we're gonna fucking kill you." And I'm like, what the fuck? Are you like, this was the first time I ever really saw, probably the only time I really saw like true racism, show itself in prison. And eventually the guards couldn't stop anymore. There was about 5 guards. There was this one guard. He was actually a cool guy. Like he was a nice guard, you know what I mean? And he got hit in the face with a rock, and he was pissed. Like he got hit with like a big rock in the face. And so what happened at this point in time now is people are starting to throw things. So both sides of the line are literally throwing things back and forth at each other. Well, this is the same yard where we have dormitories. There's 10 dorms. There's 4 buildings. Building 1, 2, 3, and 4. Building 4 has 3 dorms. Building 1 has 3 dorms, and the 2 middle dorms each have 2 dorms, or the 2 middle buildings each have 2 dorms. So there's 10 dorms. Well, each dorm has 2 fire extinguishers. Okay? So now there's 20 fire extinguishers, and they all made their way out to the middle of the basketball court. And this was when I became scared, because there's fire extinguishers flying through the air. And I'm like, I prayed. I remember I said, God, please do not let me get hit in the face with a fire extinguisher. Like, that was the only thing. I don't care about fighting. I don't care about, I could get punched, get beat up. I got punched by my brother, actually, who didn't know me at the time. He thought I was a Mexican. And I was with my buddy who actually pulled him back, because when it all actually happened and we got to each other, we lost. Obviously, there was 180 of us, and there was about 800 of them. By the time it got to this point, there was 180 of us, and literally waves and waves and waves of them, 700, 800 of them. I don't know the true number, but it was a lot more than there were of us. It was the Mexicans, it was the white boys, it was the entire yard, an 1,100 person yard versus us. And we fought. A lot of people fought. I have some friends who, like, I have friends I still talk to that were there. I have a friend who got. When the lines, because what would happen is we'd rush the lines, and the cops by this point they gave up. They said, we're done. They left. They got out of the middle of that shit, and we rushed. Like our line would push, their line would push, and there'd be fighting, and then they'd pull back. Well, sometimes some people wouldn't, like a brother. Like I had a friend of mine, a brother. He's actually half black, half white, like me, light skinned dude, like my color and everything. He rushed with us forward, and he like fell somehow. And when we pulled back, and they pulled back, he was still on their side. And it was really sad because the people who didn't make it outside got trapped inside the buildings. So if you're black and you were out in one of the buildings, you were fucked. At this point in time, the cops gave up. The cops completely gave up. They left. Like, the cops got off the yard. They were done. Like, they just said nope. And they had, like, the SSU guys. They have a SRT. Like, they're these guys, like, big old steroid motherfuckers on, with, like, body armor suits and helmets.
Yeah.
But they got to call those guys. It takes those
Yeah.
guys 30, 40 minutes to
get to the location.
To get to our location, right? So, we fought. The brothers held. Let me tell you, man, we held that line for a solid 20 minutes. And you got to remember, we're outnumbered at least 5-6 to 1. We go, and then they'd push us back a little. And then we'd go again, and they'd push us back. And then we'd go again. And the third time, we lost a lot of ground. They started pushing us back. The yard is a large rectangle. It's a huge yard. It's like 4 football fields, like equally, spaced. It's a very large yard. And we started on the basketball courts, and they pushed us all the way to the end of the yard, to the point where we got ran off the yard, essentially, was what happened. They ran us all the way to the administration building, and there was the gates that kind of left the yard. And the guards, by this point in time, saw kind of what was happening. Like, by this point in time, their numbers had started. We were going with them for a minute, just off pure, the brothers fight better. That's what it is. In prison, for the most part, the brothers fight better. It's the truth from what I've seen for the majority, of my time. And but their numbers built up, and they pushed us all the way back to the end of the yard. And a lot of brothers got kind of fucked up a little bit. I did not get hit with a fire extinguisher. My mom was coming to visit me that weekend, actually. They had canceled all visitation, obviously. They pushed us to the end of the yard. The guards saw what was happening, so the guards opened the gate. But the worst part was they caught us in a corner. When they pushed us to the end of the yard, our numbers were weak. There was a lot of mace that was getting like gas. They did the tear gas things they throw out there. So a lot of the brothers had gas in their eyes, and they pushed us into this corner where now their numbers really mattered, because we're just like a little tight group. In fact, we were so tight we couldn't even move to get out and fight if we had wanted to. Like, by this point in time, there's like brothers everywhere, and we're just trying to fucking not get sucked into their mob, because a couple people that got pulled into their mob and got like the shit beat out of them, like really, really bad. And eventually we moved from that corner to the other corner where the gate was, and the cops opened the gate and they pulled the brothers off the yard. This is the crazy fucking part. Then they closed the gate. So the problem is, you got 180 inmates, roughly, all the brothers, we're off the yard now. So the cops, we're off the yard. The cops had to be there with us, because we're not technically in the yard, in the fucking gates where we're supposed to be confined. We could just jump the other gate and fucking leave if we wanted to, you know what I mean? We could escape. So the guards got to keep an eye on us. Well, there's 800 fucking people who were just in the middle of like a huge fucking frenzy of adrenaline. And what do? They start going to every brother's house, and they steal your TV, your CD player, your shoes, your clothes. They took pictures of my daughter, and some kids drew stuff on her face. They wrote like just horrible shit on my kid's face, on pictures of my kid. They went through funny thing is, they didn't take my books. You know what? And I always laughed about that. I always laughed because those dumb motherfuckers didn't take my books. I probably had $1,000 in books. I had textbooks on Arabic that were sent from Cambridge University that my dad would send me. Literally probably $1,000 in books, and they didn't take my books. And
because they just raided all the dorms.
well, no, the books were there. They just didn't want them. They just didn't want books. They were taking TV. They took my TV. By this point in time, I had a little bit of money when I was in there, so they took my TV. They took my CD player. All your property was gone. So what they did is they put all the brothers in visitation. We stayed in visitation. I think we slept there for 2 nights. We had to literally sleep like on the floor, on mats, because they couldn't put us back on the yard. There's 180 dudes who need housing, and there's no other minimum yards in Tucson. You know what I mean? So actually there is, but it's a different complex. So we slept in visitation, and a lot of people got identified, and a lot of us got major tickets. I got a major ticket, and I got a bump in points. I think I got like 15 points, and I went back to medium security after that. And a lot of us did. A lot of us went back to Santa Rita. It's a medium yard that's right across the way. So a lot of us went back there, and I saw some of my friends. I had a buddy of mine. My neighbor, the one who had initially came and told us, he was an older dude, and he used to carve. He would take soap bars and he would carve statues. Like, they looked like little miniature marble statues, but they were made out of soap. They were very intricate. In fact, he had made one for me that I bought, and it got destroyed in the riot. It was a rocking horse. It was a full little rocking horse. It was beautiful. It looked like marble, and I was gonna send it home to my daughter, and it got destroyed in the riot. And but I ran into him when I got back to Santa Rita, and he had been like hurt really bad. He was an older dude. Some of the people who were in the buildings were like the brothers. There were some brothers who were sleeping, and they would wake up with 3-4 Mexican dudes on top of them. Just, there's dudes in wheelchairs that got hurt real bad. brothers in wheelchairs that, the white boys or Mexicans roll up on them, and it was that's probably the worst thing I ever saw in prison, just because of how, prison 99% of the time, prison is calm, mellow, and relaxed, but there's this underlying tension, and when it's that 1% of the time, when it's not calm anymore, it's the raging storm in the ocean. Most of the time it's cool, calm and collected, but
If you're fed up with paying cable companies and streaming apps too much money every month, then Vault TV is the solution you've been waiting for. Watch up to 100,000 movies on demand, up to 5,000 TV shows with over 120,000 episodes. Visit us at vaulttv.com.
And what was it all for?
So, this is a crazy story. The dude, it was a Mexican dude who was actually a very good friend of mine who played a lot of poker with me. A big dude too. He was a big guy. He's like probably 6'1", maybe 230, and a young brother. The brother was like maybe 19 or 20. So the brother. So this was the story that we got after. The brother supposedly bumped in. When I say brother, I mean a black guy. Mm-hmm. The brother bumped into him in the morning, and the Mexican dude said like, "Hey, watch out." Or something like that. Like some crazy weird little altercation where these two ended up in the bathroom fighting. Well, the brother was a little guy too. He was like 5'4", and the Mexican dude was like 6'1". And the Mexican dude got knocked out. Now that this is where the issue came into play. There was so whenever a fight happens in prison, like let's say if I'm a white boy and you're a brother, and me and you fight for whatever reason, you're gonna have one of your people there, and I'm gonna have one of my people there to make sure that it is what it's supposed to be. It ends when it's supposed to end. We don't draw too much unnecessary attention. So what happened was the brother caught the Mexican dude with some crazy shot and knocked him out, and the Mexican dude fell to the ground. In prison, if you knock somebody out and they're on the ground like bleeding, it's over. The fight's over. They're not gonna let you like just get your face like kicked in, like unless you did something to deserve getting your face kicked in. But if me and you just get into an altercation and we're gonna fight, they're not gonna let you just like demolish somebody. You know what I mean? They're gonna call it off when somebody hits the ground, when there's blood, when you know what I mean. Well, the Mexican dude got knocked out and he hit the ground. So the Mexican who was there watching for his people. Here's the other thing too. The Mexican dude was the head of the yard. The one who got knocked out. He's the head of the yard. And he worked with us at telemarketing too. That's how I know him so good. He worked with us at telemarketing for years. And I still know him. I talked to him. He's a good guy. He got knocked out by the brother, and the brother got on top and started hitting him. Well, the Mexicans tried to go in there and break it. Like, no, it's over. Like, what the fuck's wrong with you guys? This is over. And there was another brother there. And the other brother was a real big dude, like real big, like you didn't. This is like the last guy in the yard. You really don't want to. And he pretty much stepped in front of the bathroom door and said like no, and he didn't let the Mexicans get in there to his people, to the dude, to the head of the yard who was knocked out unconscious, and the little brother was on top of this Mexican dude, just giving it to him. Well, the Mexican dude went to the hospital, came back the next day. His eye was split open and everything. And he walked up to the brother who they fought with and shook hands. He's like, it's all good, bro. Like, everything's cool. But the Mexicans came back to him and said, no, bro, you're fucking tripping. You didn't see what happened because you were knocked out. You were unconscious on the fucking bathroom floor. That dude blocked the door off and didn't let us get to you. That's why your face is split open, because he was on top of you. And so the Mexicans came to the brothers early in the morning the next morning on the basketball court and said, like, yo, that dude violated. The brother who blocked the door, the big guy who blocked the door, that you can't do that shit. You can't do that shit. Y'all got to run him off the yard. And we were like, we're not running him off the fucking yard. That's what the head of our people told him. We're not running this guy off the fucking yard. He's kind of OG. He's been in the system for a while. He's well known. I know the guy too. He's a solid dude. I don't know why he did that. I'm not sure what happened, but they wanted the brothers to run this guy off the yard. And the brothers were like, we're not running him off the yard. And there was like diplomacy. Like normally these kind of things will get talked out. It'd be like, okay, well, we're going to do this, or we're going to do that, or we're going to like figure some kind of deal out. A medium, exactly. So we don't have to press it to this extent. Well, there was this other brother, one of the worst people I ever met in prison, because he's just a scumbag, like just a scumbag. He pretty much said like, fuck you, flipped the Mexicans off, said, suck my dick, fuck you. And then just turned his back and walked away. In the middle of like a negotiation.
Yeah, disrespectful.
It's super disrespectful for no reason. Like you could have just talked this through. But, that's pretty much what happened. A dude got into a fight, another dude stopped them from ending the fight, and that's what happened. and a riot started because of that, and a lot of people lost all their property. We never got reimbursed. DLC never paid us back for any of our shit. Lots of people petitioned to, all like the fucking jailhouse lawyers. They're writing their petitions and like, you guys gotta replace my TV. You guys gotta replace my radio. You guys gotta replace all this stuff because y'all let the white boys and Mexicans run through our houses and take all our shit. So we never got any of that back. There was never no like reimbursement or anything. And it happened on a visitation day. And then so I got moved to Santa Rita, which is another yard that had literally just had a riot like 4 months before, and they were on lockdown because of that. So I got moved to a new yard that was literally like locked down because they were in a riot. And that's where most of the brothers, we all went to another 3-yard in Tucson, and they moved them back. The brothers who were like actively involved that they identified on camera, they moved us to the 3-yard. The other races and stuff, they got moved, like they got sent to whole different complexes. Like they sent them like to Buckeye, to Yuma, to Kingman, like all over the state, just to separate them and then end the tension. But that was the only riot I ever saw in prison. And just seeing the old people, and just the yelling, the stuff that these are people you thought, you kind of knew a little bit, guys you might have played cards with or played some spades
Changed
with
the
and
whole
stuff.
thing.
Yeah, they yelling N-word at you and all kinds of stuff. And it's crazy, you know what I mean? But that's the worst one I saw.
Hey y'all, Big Herc 916 and Mike, man, I tell y'all, stay the hell out of prison, man. Ain't no place to be.